You've written a book. Now what? This is a question many ask me, and while today's episode will offer some helpful tips on what your next right steps could be, I want to start by sharing what you shouldn't be doing. Don't keep them in a box in your basement to collect dust and mildew or get impacted by an air conditioner leak because I know this from personal experience and lost a lot of inventory that way. I don't want you to think that books will sell themselves because, friends, nothing will do that, I promise, unfortunately. I also don't want you to try to manifest its success. Now, I believe in some manifestation, absolutely. But book success requires a manifest partner in the deal, and it's called taking action and talking about it. I also don't want you to forget about your book. It's not a mistake that you made that needs to be distanced from or hidden from. It's important, and you should be remembering that you wrote a book and telling people about it. I don't want you to think that you've lost your window of opportunity if you've already published your book and it's been out for years and you feel like maybe you've missed that chance because books don't have a shelf life and you can breathe life into them whenever you're ready. I believe that. I also don't want you to hold back and opt to not tell anyone about your book or your book success because to sell books requires you to talk about them. Period. End of story. On today's episode of the Empowered Author Podcast, I am joined again by my dear friend Jennifer Crosswhite, who is my co-partner on our weekly Beyond the Page live stream, and together we are offering up many tips on how to plan to sell books this year. I believe in you. I believe in your book. I believe in your message. So I want this to be the year that others are changed by it. Ready to dive in, friends? Let's do this. Hey, I'm Stephanie Feger, and Empower is my middle name. Well, not really, but it should be. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and will buy it. I'm the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group, and I'm the author of 3 books myself, including my newest book, Make Your Author Impact. Sell more books, increase your reach, and achieve your why. I have been called to merge my love for reading books and writing books and marketing books to help nonfiction authors like you with laser-focused strategies and tactics so that you guys can write books that sell, promote those books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. My hope is that you can think of this podcast as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there, who has done that, and who understands exactly where you are. Because, author friend, I do. So get your pens ready because I'm ready to empower you. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. Let's say the book's out or you're about to launch it. Today's topic is really about this is your year to sell books. And I know that sounds so rhetorical, Jen. Like, duh, you wrote a book, we should sell them. But it is probably one of the hardest parts for authors because it requires levels of vulnerability. One of the things that, and this is going to sound so duh, I have no other word to say than don't, like duh. But to sell your books, you have to talk about them.
Right? Yes.
This
is very true. You know, John Acuff, we've talked about him and his book soundtracks. He has written a lot of books about goal setting. He's doing a challenge group right now in Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you follow him on social media, one of the things he's been saying lately is that when you start something, you do something, you have a side hustle, you write a book, whatever, you need to talk about it a lot more than you think you do.
Yes.
I feel this one, right? I hate talking about it. I always feel like, oh, people hear me all the time. But if you look at your social media feed, for example, it's full of so much stuff. It may seem your stuff will seem a lot because you see your stuff. But if you look at other people's stuff, how often do you really see all of their things? And so I still have people say to me, now, what do you do? And I'm like, I've been doing this for almost 9 years.
Okay, so you bring up a really valid point, and it's something I was just jotting down a couple of notes when you were saying that. I'm like, ooh, I'd forgotten about these things. So a piece of advice that I had recently received, a couple years ago, but it's so applicable to books and marketing your books and talking about your books. It's this concept of crossroads. Like the people that are connected to you may not care about your message until something happens in their life where then they need your
Yes.
message. So if
Right.
you're not constantly, and when I say constantly, I don't mean every 5 seconds saying, buy my book. Did you buy my book? Here's my book. Buy the book. Buy the book. That will fall flat. But if you're not
Right.
not on a consistent basis sharing your message, the people who will need it won't know about it when they need it. And I'll be
Right.
telling
When they need it.
yeah, I think that's selfish. I'm just calling it out, Jen. If
Mhm.
you took the time to write something that could help people and you don't tell people about
Yes.
it, it is selfish. And if you sit there with that thought, that one liner, you're being selfish. Nobody wants to be
Mhm.
selfish. Then it
Right.
shifts how you see it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing this because I'm saying, look at me. I'm doing
Yeah.
it because I have something of value that the world needs and people can be changed from.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. That's very true. You went to the effort to
Yep.
write the book, so
Yep.
you need to go to the effort to share it with other people because you never know. I tell people, world can go around a book can go around the world and impact people
Yep.
you would never meet. You have
Yep.
no idea how your message is going
Yep.
to help somebody else. You have no way to predict that.
Nope.
And so for you just to say, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter," you may be cutting it off from the person that needs it,
Mhm.
that could really be helped by it.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the process is you're sharing the information for the people that need it when they need it, which may not be right now. It
Exactly.
might just kind of float in the back of their head and then, "Oh, you know what? I vaguely remember something."
Right.
So it's an ongoing process. We think, "Oh my gosh, I've talked about this book so much. Everybody in the world must know." And they're like, and then you have someone, did you write a book?
They don't. And you're not your target reader. So if you're annoyed
No.
by it, the people who need it won't. So I have two examples of things that has happened in the last 7 days that I think are like really cool and I have to share. One of them is last Friday, I was headed to the audiobook producer because I'm on the last leg. Jen, it's going to be soon
Yes.
for my audiobook of Make Your Author Impact to come out. And on the way there, I realized that the audio producer and I spend a lot of time together, and usually we don't eat lunch because we're so focused. And I'm usually hungry,
Right.
and I know he's hungry. So I had driven past this bakery called My Favorite Muffin in our area. Delicious.
Mm.
You can't have it, Jen, because of gluten. I was gonna say
Story
they're
of my life.
Louisville, but I think that they might have a gluten option occasionally. But anyways, if you don't have gluten issues, you like your sugar, go there. They make little bitty muffins. Okay, so I got two
Oh.
baker's dozens, and and one for him and one for me. Well, I was thinking, how are we going to do this? So the lady that was helping me said, "Do you want it packaged in one box or in two boxes?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't know that was an option. What would be the purpose of two boxes?" This is the extrovert Jen in me, like thinking out loud and like, duh, why
Right.
would you want that? And she goes, "Oh, in case you like have different people eating it." I'm like, "Yes, I want two boxes." And because I'm really bad at negative space, I'm start talking and I don't mean to, but I was like, that's great because I'm headed to my audiobook producer and I can take a box back into the recording room with me and he can have them out there. And then if he eats all of his awesome. And if he doesn't, he can keep them. If I eat all mine, awesome, whatever. And so they're checking me out and they like not checking me out, but like paying for the they go, "So you're going to the audiobook?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, what do you do with that?" And I said, "Oh, I'm the author. I'm recording the book." And they're like, "That is so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks. It's fun. No big deal." I go to leave. Now you got to know there was only one person that was in this little bitty bakery when I got there. When I left, there was like a whole line. But I noticed this man. He was an older gentleman, and I noticed him because he had a really cool iPad thing. And I was going to ask him about it, but he was focused on his coffee, his muffin, and his iPad. So I decided to not bother him with my extroversion. So I sat there and moved on and talked to the people behind the counter. Well, I go to leave. And the older gentleman goes, "Excuse me, miss." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What is it that you do?" And I go, "Oh." And so I'm like, I write books and I help people market theirs and all this stuff. And I said, "Sorry if I was being loud." He goes, "No, no, no. I am responsible for getting speakers for the Rotary in Shelby County, and I would love for you to come out. We have authors there." And I go, "I live in Shelby County." He's like, "How funny is that?" So we changed and exchanged
Wow.
cards. That is proof. You have to talk about
Yes.
this.
One book at a time, right?
One book.
One book at a time. You
Yes.
never know. You
You never
never
know
know.
who's listening. I had
Yep.
noticed him, but I mean, if I would have just walked up and said, you know, "Hey, friend, I like what you're doing. Want a copy of my book?" That would fall flat. But he
That
overheard
would
the
be weird.
story. It would be weird. The other thing that happened this week was, it was actually the same day. I got out of the recording studio and the producer was doing some editing. So I was just looking at social media and I saw on LinkedIn that somebody had tagged me in a post. I did not know this person directly. This person and I had very few shared connections. And also, I don't personally know any of them. So I didn't know this, but this guy had
Mhm.
finished reading a book for the year and had given a kind of subpar or mediocre review and said that he was starting his second book. It was mine, and said he couldn't put it down. He's already 5 chapters in.
Nice.
He started that day.
I love it.
Jen, it's proof. You don't know who's listening.
You have
You don't
no
know
idea.
who needs your stuff. Like, you have to talk about it. Moral of the story.
Yep.
You have to do that.
It's true. It's true. My mom was having when she was having her hip replacement surgery, they put the family in a waiting room and they have like a volunteer, hospital volunteer who answers the phone and gives you the status update. And she was reading an author I knew actually. And I carry bookmarks of my books
Mhm.
in my purse with me because when people ask, what do you write? It's just so much easier to hand them a bookmark, right?
Smart.
Instead of they're never going to remember the name or whatever. Do QR codes. My next set of bookmarks are going to have QR codes that go to my
I love
website.
QR codes.
Yeah, so easy. And
Yep.
so I said, "Oh, I love that book. I know that author personally. I've read that book. You must be a big reader." And she goes, "Oh, yes, I am." I go, "Well, I'm an author. Here's some bookmarks for you." And come to find out, she went to my church. I saw her one Sunday, and she came up to me. She goes, "Oh, I bought all your books."
Stop.
See, so you never know. You never know. But you figure if someone's a reader and they're reading in that genre, they're going to enjoy it. And so it's a great, it's a great door. It's not creepy. It's just someone sharing. As a reader, I would have loved
Yep.
people sharing their book recommendations with me. So,
Well, and the other thing is they might not be readers, but they may be a connection to readers or people who need
right.
your message. This is like it was again planned, but it wasn't. These ideas, Jen. But just yesterday, I received a phone call and I saw the phone call coming in, and I get a lot of spam. So annoying. So I usually filter my phone calls if I don't know the person.
Me too.
And I get the voicemail, and it is someone that I know, but it is the spouse of someone that I know who wanted to discuss with me about a speaking opportunity coming up. So I called her back and we chatted about a conference that they have going on, and they were looking for a keynote. And immediately she said, "Myself and my husband thought of you." And I was like, "Well, that's amazing. Thank you." And then she's like, "Well, I've read your book." Now, my first book came out in 2018. So we're talking like what, 5 years ago she read my book? And
Yeah.
she and I didn't know that it changed her, that she liked it that much or what have you. I
Wow.
didn't know that. But she was now a part of a board, and the board is doing an event, and the event was looking for a very specific speaker, and she thought of me. See,
Wow.
and Zan,
See, you never know.
who knows? And listen, you don't have to be the only one talking about it.
Right.
Zan shares her husband talks about it more than she does. Yeah, you do need to change that, but it's also extremely valuable when someone who loves you is also talking about
Yeah.
it. And I think my husband does it too. He used to carry copies of his books in his car when he would go to pay. He probably and to sell them or to give them away or what have you. So but Zan, this is a prime example of like the next part is if you are connecting with the people who can help you reach your target reader, they will go out and they will start talking about your message too. So who is it? Who's a
Yes.
complimentary service provider or someone else who is speaking your language and might be able to be a extension of you? Those people can help
Right.
you sell books.
Yes, and I often say in the nonfiction world, I often use the example of like a financial guide,
What is
right?
up with that?
Well,
You need to write a book
I
about
don't know.
finance because you use it all the time.
I don't want to write a book about finance. But people like this is a thing people like really stress about, and it's a thing couples fight about, right? So
Oh,
a marriage counselor would be a good complementary provider for someone who's writing a book on finances,
ab-
especially if it addresses some of that dynamic, right? That would be something that would be like a complementary. They would be helping each other with
Yeah.
those referrals. And there's a lot of those kinds of things. If you start thinking about what your book might be about, that there could be some complementary people that would be like, oh, that would be a great resource for my audience as well.
Yep.
And kind of identifying, seeing how you can help each other out in those kinds of
Mhm.
ways. Those can be a great way to be thinking about another kind of audience for your book.
I like that, and I like that when you think of it in that way, it's not that you're trying to take advantage of somebody or ask somebody to do
Mhm.
something that doesn't make sense to them. You're actually providing value to them for them to be able
Yeah.
to serve those people too. So, like your example, right? Like they might that therapist might not have a resource like that. You are now
Right.
helping that therapist deepen loyalty with her clients because you are a solution to a struggle that they have, right?
Right.
So that is marketing in its finest. It's a win-win for everybody. It's not just to help you with the goal of selling books, it's to help you make that impact. So maybe, wiggle backwards and get a 360 view of your why, and that will help you
Mhm.
identify the right complementary service providers
Mhm.
that can help navigate it. And I also want you to consider too, you mentioned the one at a time book sale, which is
Mhm.
awesome. But you could also do the one to many book sale option.
Right.
And how does that work? How can you have somebody do a bulk book sale? Ooh, those are always my
Right.
favorite.
Right?
Always.
Yes, who could benefit from buying your books in bulk,
Yep.
at a discount where, again, maybe they're going to hand them out to their clients.
Mhm.
Maybe they're gonna they have a group or something like that. There's a school or an organization or something
Yep.
that would benefit from that.
Yep.
This is great where even like memoir and more
Mhm.
personal can be really good for community groups, people that might be working through similar issues,
Yep.
things like that, where it could be a big
Mhm.
advantage to have that. That is definitely thinking outside the box. But there are definitely people who have, and there's an author, and the whole thing is escaping me at this moment, but she was able to sell a bunch of her books to, I want to say, divorce attorneys. There was something in them. I can't
Oh,
remember if they were a finance or a
that's
emotionally
amazing.
healthy something. But anyways, for
Mhm.
whatever reason, divorce attorneys, this was a real complimentary service provider. They bought them as bulk. They handed them out to their clients, and it was a great. Maybe it was on single parenting. I don't even remember. But anyways, it was something like that where it was an out of the box thing, but it was a perfect situation where someone said, "Yes, this would be a great tool for me to give my
Absolutely.
clients. I want to buy them in bulk." And
Mhm.
then when you do bulk orders like that, you can make some customizations, which is
Absolutely,
a
you
fun
can.
thing.
And
Ingram
that's so
Spark allows you to do
mhm.
that. You can change the front page and make it a special custom edition, and
Which
that
is
makes it
awesome.
really fun to be able to do that for people. If you want to be really crazy and do, you can raise money through a Kickstarter if you want to do some
Mhm.
really fancy different kinds of editions,
Mhm.
hardback or whatever. You can even, if you don't mind funding the money yourself, you can certainly do those kinds of things. Thinking about what your audience would really like, would there be a reason to do a leather bound or a
Yeah.
really cool jacketed hardcover or some sort of gold, imprint foil or something? I mean, you think about where your brain can go with this.
Yep.
There can be all sorts of really really cool options that you can do. You can do any of those things. You can do them
Yes.
if you would like. There's
The world is your
lots of choices
oyster.
out there.
It
Yeah.
is. One of the things that several clients that I've worked with over the years has found a lot of successes in the custom edition space is they might be going
Mhm.
and doing speaking engagements. So the people that pay them, or the let me backtrack, the bucket of money in the budget to pay them to speak is usually a different bucket of money than specifics, logistical needs, or even advertising for the event. So
Mhm.
their speaker's fee might come out of one bucket, but they might
Mhm.
need tchotchkes at the event, right? And so you
Right.
can do a 250 bulk book sale discount so everybody can get it. And if
Copy.
they
Yeah.
want, I actually have seen several of my clients, they then add an additional fee to it if you want it customized. And they can
Right.
have the CEO of the company do a forward or something that is just
Yes.
for that event, a
For
one.
that group.
Yes, that has been really big. Another idea that I had, and man, Jen, I personally have not done this, made it work. I got so close years ago, and then I was stingy and I wasn't generous with the bulk discount, and I should have been. We talked about the cat subscription box, for instance. They have
Right.
subscription boxes for everything. And
Right.
imagine if you sold 1,000 copies of your book to go in subscription boxes.
Yeah.
Or when I was in negotiation, I was actually selling ebook versions. And
Mm,
there was a way that you could do that that was really interesting. And so there
nice.
are things you can do, but it's about this concept of when you go bulk, you can make more by adapting the price point to what is in
Right.
alignment, but it helps you sell books. And really, at the end of the day, the goal is to get the books in the hands of the people.
Right. Now people know your name.
Of
You have
course.
other books,
Yes.
especially it's perfectly fine to sell in those kinds of situations where
Yeah.
you're not making money on the book. That is
Right.
not the point, right? You might make the money on the speaker fee. You might think of it as a marketing
Yeah.
expense. You're
Hmm.
getting your name out, you're getting exposure. You might get other speaking gigs.
Yep.
You might have other books to sell. There could be any number of things that would happen. So again, think about the fact that you're not necessarily going to want to pay get 20, $25 per book, right? You might want to say, no, I'm going to just do these maybe at cost, maybe a
Yeah.
little above cost,
Yep.
just as a great way to get my name out there. It's really one of the most effective marketing tools you can have. You think about how much money you can spend on marketing in other areas. That would cost you very little
Hmm.
for a really powerful marketing impact. So
Yep.
think of these kind of be as creative as you can. There's all sorts of ways
There
to
is.
think outside the traditional bookstore, bookseller place.
Don't be limited,
um, are,
ladies and
are
gents.
there gift shops that you can sell at? Is there a local interest store? Is there some what
Yep.
other connections you can make? Subscription boxes, like you were saying.
Yep.
All these other things where you can start thinking about things that might go with your book that could be complementary to that, that might be a unique way to present your book to a totally different audience. I think it's really fun. We're creative people as writers, and so put that creativity to your test and have fun
Mhm.
with it. See what you can do.
Throw out the normal box, create a new one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book of the week that I'm reading is a proof copy of an author that potentially I'll get the chance to work with who has a deep, deep love of birds and has written a book about a
Fun.
sanctuary that she has done over the years in her community where she has really cared for the animals out there that people overlook. And we do. I mean, anyways, I'm about a third of the way done and it is oddly enlightening. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I actually grew up, Jen, with a fear of birds
Oh,
because I was
interesting.
attacked by them when I was snorkeling.
Yeah.
Right, and
Oh,
then it was bad.
wow.
But then when my grandmother passed away, she started sending me cardinal birds, and that became really
Mhm.
meaningful to me. So I've had a
Mhm.
new appreciation. But there was what I love about her book, even though it has a lot to do with understanding creatures and life that maybe we don't always understand, it also has a beautiful parallel to understanding one another. And there was a phrase in here that I thought was just really poignant. There's many. I have the whole thing underlined. It's insane. But I wrote at this part, it says, all this shows you that you can't know what will happen around the next bend. It's best to never ever give up. And she has this
Mm.
whole storyline that outlines how she fell in love with birds, why she did, the fight she had to go
Wow.
through to turn her home into a bird sanctuary, and how
Mm.
she went through some really challenging times in life, but didn't let that stop her. And I think that that's just really poignant advice in general. But when you're talking
Mm.
about selling your book, it's like walking up this hill. And I always say, right when you want to get off the hill and go backwards, you might be at the tip. Just one more
Right.
step and things could be easy. Big books, bulk sales could happen. A bookstore calls you. Someone wants you to speak. Someone posts about your book on LinkedIn. Somebody meets you at
Right.
the muffin store. Like you just have to keep
You never
talking.
know.
You never
Yeah.
know. Books don't sell themselves. And people don't buy books, really. They buy connections with people.
Mhm.
And
True.
people connect with people. So for your book to make the biggest extension and reach, you have to be a part of it. If you walk away with one single piece of advice today, I hope it is this. Books don't sell themselves, people do. People do. So, to sell books means you have to talk about them. Consider who needs your book's message and then determine how they can use it and how you can use it too in your business as a door opener, maybe for new clients, as a leave behind at an event, and more. The one-to-one approach in book sales is valuable, But don't neglect the one-to-many approach too, because that's where bulk book purchases come in. If our team can help you sell books, we'd love to. In fact, selling books is a meaningful part of the author impact framework that we have here. Visit empowerprgroup.com/connect and let's have a chat. Author friend, thanks for listening today and for saying yes to becoming empowered. You are destined to make an author impact. I believe in it. I also know that it requires a path to get there, and a plan can help make that happen. As you know, I am a believer that empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now, it's your turn to empower others.